Oh dear, Stephen Stroh sighed to the baby. Everything okay at home? Stephen Stroh, San Francisco taxi badge number 43653, Series E, waited in his cab in the parking lot of the 24-hour Albertsons supermarket in the Western Addition. 11:10, Sunday night. It wasn't so late. Not really, he told himself. The baby lay on the front passenger seat, wrapped in a pale blue knitted blanket, with one end wadded up to serve as a pillow. To Stephen, the boy, his mother had called him her son, it looked too young to be eating fried chicken, but there he was, gumming a drumstick from Church's Fried Chicken at Market and 7th, where she had hailed the taxi. The baby's face was smeared with chicken grease. He mouthed the chicken leg as if it were a pacifier. The mother was younger than Stephen. Stephen was 25. He guessed that she looked to be about 17 or 18. She had curly blonde hair, not so long, and a pretty face. She seemed like a nice girl, he thought. He had stopped the cab when she had hailed him from the sidewalk. She'd asked if she could sit in the front seat. He was a new driver at the time, but already he had learned that people who want to sit in the front seat often have certain things they wanted to talk about. It happened more often than he had expected. He figured that they could speak honestly to a taxi driver without having to worry about seeing the person again. I'll tell it myself from here. I'm Stephen Stroh. She told me the address, Eddie and Steiner. I drove up to Turk Street and headed west. She just held the baby and looked straight ahead. She was white and the baby was black. You from around here? I asked. You mean San Francisco? Well, I'm from New Hampshire. I've been driving a cab here for about 2 weeks, I told her. Yeah, I'm from around here, she said. She didn't elaborate. A minute went by. You've been here for only 2 weeks and you're driving a taxi? How do you know the roads? She asked. Well, I've been living here for a year and a half. I worked construction, but I got fired, I said. Happens to the best of us, she said. You know, when we get up to this light, take a right. There's an Albertsons. We're going to my mother's house and I need to pick up a few things. I pulled into the parking lot and parked. She asked if I would mind if she left her son in the cab while she went in. I didn't mind. I was happy to give the young mother a break. So there we were, the baby and me. He looked at me, his dark eyes peering over the drumstick, resting it on his chin as he looked up. He seemed happy, calm. He lifted the chicken bone again to look more carefully at it in the dark. It felt good to me to be helping out this young lady and her son. I hoped they would do well in the future. The boy was too young to talk, and I didn't really know what to say anyway, but we whiled away the time, waiting for his mother to return. Somewhere, I had noticed that babies of that age sometimes liked it when I would talk to them as if they were adults. They would laugh, so I gave it a try. Oh boy, I said to him in a sigh. I looked at him, swaddled in the blanket, the greasy fried chicken bag tucked in with him. He lifted his head to look at me directly. He gurgled, as a baby should. What must it be like to have a child, I wondered. I had always been told that I would have to be a good provider if I ever wanted to get married and have children. No good woman is ever going to marry a poor provider. That's what my father had told me. After 10 minutes had passed, the thought crossed my mind that the young mother was taking quite a long time. I was fresh off my training. The police course one must take to obtain a taxi badge in San Francisco had trained us for this exact scenario. When a child is abandoned in your cab, you must bring the child to the nearest police station. You will have to fill out a report. The police will handle the situation from there. I hoped that it was just my imagination working on me. 10 minutes is not a long time. I can't drive off with the girl's kid. No, Stephen, you certainly must not do that. So what do you think she's getting in there? I asked the baby. He looked at me and smiled, letting out a long, single-syllable laugh, like babies do. Wow. I'm sure you're right. There's nothing to worry about, I said. The baby laughed again. When 15 minutes had passed, I turned off the meter. That goes against the training, but I did it anyway. The boy's clothes were rags, the blanket dirty. The smell of the fried chicken filled the cab, even with my window open. And it smelled like old pizza as well, and maybe French fries from 3 days ago. It occurred to me that I was lucky that at least he didn't seem to need his diaper changed. I wondered about the girl, her circumstances. After 10 o'clock on a Sunday night at Church's Fried Chicken with her son at Market and 7th. Oh, God. In those days, Market at 7th formed the southern boundary of the Tenderloin. At night, the Tenderloin spread across Market Street to include the bus station on 7th, south of Market. It was a rough place for a young mother. She had seemed upbeat enough when she had spoken. As I waited, I realized that her cheerful act might have been part of a plan. When 20 minutes had passed, I began to make a plan of my own. I would give her 40 minutes. If she had not returned to the cab by that time, I had to assume that she was abandoning her child. I would take the boy to the police station at Turk and Fillmore. So, I looked at the boy. Everything okay at home? I imagined what the situation might be. I wondered if she was with the father. Whoa, buddy, I said to myself. I looked over to the boy. I sure hope your mother comes back soon. She reminded me of a girl I knew back in high school, Amy Kerensky. Same hair, same build, short and skinny, cute. After school, Amy had worked at the New Dartford House of Pizza. She was cool, streetwise, never took any shit from unruly customers. Anyway, enough daydreaming. The situation here is that I'm driving a taxi in San Francisco and I have a baby in the passenger seat, and the mother is in the supermarket. I hope. At this time of night, only my cab and 2 other cars are in the parking lot. The store is not busy. Whatever she needed to buy would have only taken a few minutes, not 25 minutes. Oh dear. This is really happening. Stephen, pull yourself together. She will be out soon. Maybe she had to go to the bathroom or something. Maybe she's talking on a payphone. There are lots of reasons why she might be taking so long. Personal reasons, of course. Lots of reasons. Give her time. 39 minutes. She's not here. 40 minutes. She's not here. That was my cutoff point. What do you think? I asked the baby. I couldn't leave. I knew that my original plan was right. Nobody spends 40 minutes in the supermarket just picking up a few things. Stephen, she is abandoning her baby. You have to follow your training. You have to go to the police station. You know where it is. Get going. 50 minutes. I'm still here. I suppose it's okay. You never make any money on Sundays anyway. I think your mother might be going through some hard times, I said. I thought to myself, abandoning a child must be the most difficult decision that anyone can ever make. It goes against all instincts. I imagined that she found an exit on the other side of the store, and once outside, she walked. Then maybe she ran. She ran and ran. Then she might have run until she couldn't run anymore. Then she walked. Maybe she went all the way to Alamo Square Park. Then maybe she sat. What would go through her mind? Did she sit and cry? I could only imagine. She might have come to her senses and asked herself what had she done and started walking back. I had no way of knowing. I decided that I would act on that possibility. I realized that I should have some water or something for the baby, but I would have to go into the store for that. He seemed happy enough. If I went in to get water, I would have to bring him in with me. I would never leave a baby alone in my cab. I would have to do that. I would pick him up, bring him with me into the store to buy water. Yes, water. That's what I would do, I thought to myself. What else do babies need? I didn't know. But he was cheerful so far. As long as he was quiet, I would wait. A whole hour had passed. The baby stirred and giggled. I'm just talking to myself, I whispered. I'm afraid that your mother's not going to come back, I said. I'm going to wait here because I think that if she's doing what I think she's doing, she will come back. That's what I whispered to the baby. Or maybe she's watching from somewhere. I stopped talking out loud. I bet she's watching. She's out there somewhere waiting for me to leave. When I leave, it is done. When I leave, she can leave. There will be no going back. Well, I'm not leaving. How do you like them apples? I said to the baby. Sundays are always slow. All the drivers said so. After midnight, there's no hope of making money. My shift would be up at 4 in the morning. If she didn't come back by 3:30, I would have no choice but follow my training. I waited. The boy seemed to find my mutterings amusing. I looked at him. I reached over to scrunch the blanket to better support his head. Have you ever seen the movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington? I asked him. He laughed, that single-syllable laugh of his. We watched it a couple weeks ago at our house on TV. It's an old movie, but they play it every year around this time. It's corny, but it stars Jimmy Stewart. I like Jimmy Stewart, I told the baby. This really got him going. Oh, you want to hear my Jimmy Stewart? I asked. It seemed like he wanted to hear it. Okay, okay. The people of my state need relief from the crooks riding on their backs, I said, trying to capture the slight vibrato and stretched vowels of that distinctive voice. I tell you, wild horses couldn't drag me out of this cab until the people have heard what I have to say, even if it takes till 3:30 a.m. The boy waved his chicken bone in excitement. What's that? What's that? Oh, no, it's a filibuster. He's going to talk forever, I said, imitating a different voice. Continuing with the Jimmy Stewart. I'd like to enter the following into the senatorial record. I cleared my throat. The rivers of New England once teemed with salmon. They say that in New Dartford, New Hampshire, in their fall spawning runs, the salmon were so thick on the Sahican River that a man could walk across the river on their backs. Can you imagine? I asked, looking at the baby. It was working. He was loving it. Then came the dams. Starting some 200 years ago, one by one, dams were built for industry, until by 100 years ago, all the rivers of New England were dammed. Damned, I say. I pointed and waved my hands to provide drama as I spoke. The salmon disappeared. Those industries, the textile mills of Lowell, Massachusetts, of Dover, Nashua, and Manchester, New Hampshire, have all shut down. The industries are gone, but the dams remain. You getting all this down? I asked the baby to his delight. Then, some 10 years ago, a program was started to build fish ladders on the dams to restore salmon to several rivers. In New Hampshire, the Lamprey River in the coastal town of Newmarket was chosen. The boy was riveted. The first returning adult salmon could be expected 3 or 4 years after the yearling salmon had been released. I must have been 15 years old when that time came, and I asked my father if he would take me to Newmarket so I could try to catch a salmon. At this point, I dropped the Jimmy Stewart impression and just continued the story in my own voice to the baby. My father wasn't a fisherman. His hobby was chess. He was a good chess player. I didn't mind fishing on my own. He could play chess while I fished. He had a portable set and was always playing chess by himself. He agreed to go. I had books on fly patterns and had studied them. Seth, the salesman at the tackle shop, knew about the salmon program and advised me on the best places to try for salmon on the Lamprey. The run would begin in September. I tied a dozen flies for the big day. Then the day came, a beautiful fall day. We drove to the coast, my father and I, a 2-hour drive from New Dartford. We arrived in Newmarket and parked at the boat landing. There was a small park with a bench where my father could sit and play chess while I fished. The boat landing was about 200 yards downstream from the dam, the perfect spot. I rigged up and tried a few casts, watching the water carefully to catch a glimpse of a salmon. Several casts. Nothing yet. I went to a different position on the river. Still no salmon. After perhaps half an hour of casting, I went back to my father to tell him I was going to look at the fish ladder itself. It was illegal to fish on the dam, but I just wanted to see if I could see any salmon at all. From Route 108, a service road to the mill buildings goes right by the top of the dam. There was a chain link gate and a no trespassing sign, but there was a gap in the gate that I could slip through. And once down on the steel grate cover of the fish ladder, I would not be seen. I snuck through and made my way down onto the cover of a holding pen at the top of the fish ladder. This is where the salmon would be, if any had returned. In the program, the fish would be collected from a holding pen and delivered to a hatchery, where they would be bred. I kneeled, face down, cupped my hands around my eyes to cut the glare. I looked carefully. No fish. Not yet. I climbed back out and walked up to the road, to Route 108, down through Newmarket, to the boat landing, where my father was playing chess. I told him I was ready to go back. I hadn't seen any salmon. By this time, the baby was asleep. My filibuster had worked. I sat silent, resting my eyes for some time. Then I opened my eyes. It was 12:50. I looked at the store and noticed a figure in the shadow of at the edge of the building. It had to be her. She stepped out of the shadow, and I watched the silhouette of a curly-haired girl walking toward my cab. I sat up. She had steeled herself for this moment. She walked up to the passenger side door. I unlocked the door and let her in. She got in, took up her baby, and held him closely, her hand gently on the back of her son's head. The boy roused with his single-syllable laugh. "Where to, ma'am?" I asked. "Can you take us back to Geary and Larkin?" she asked. "Geary and Larkin," I said, thinking for a moment to picture exactly where that was. "Oh yes, Geary and Larkin." "Geary and Larkin. This one's on me," I told her.